The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with tension. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the circular hall, their forms ranging from sleek, metallic beings to towering creatures wrapped in glowing mist. Above them, a massive holographic map of the galaxy shimmered faintly, its stars twinkling like silent witnesses. At the center of it all stood Captain Ilara Quinn, her heart pounding beneath her calm exterior. She was humanity's voice here today, and she knew this meeting would define Earth's place among the stars. Ilara glanced around the room, trying not to let her nerves show. To her left sat the Krylos delegation, their armored bodies gleaming under the artificial lights. Known for their warrior culture, they had always viewed humans with disdain. On her right were the Veil, ethereal beings who communicated through melodic hums and gestures. They seemed indifferent to humanity, but often sided with the Council's harshest critics. Both groups had already made their opinions clear during earlier sessions. Humans were weak, unworthy, and unfit to join the Galactic Council as equals. The Council leader, an ancient being named Zenara, floated above her platform at the head of the chamber. Her translucent form pulsed softly as she addressed the assembly. Humanity has been given ample opportunity to demonstrate its value, Zenara said, her voice resonating like distant thunder. Yet time and again, your species chooses retreat over resilience, negotiation over action. You lack the courage required to stand alongside us. Ilara clenched her fists behind her back. Every word felt like a blow, heavy and unfair. It wasn't true that humanity refused to fight. History showed countless examples of bravery and sacrifice. But how could she argue when so many other species saw only Earth's flaws? Humans weren't perfect. They never claimed to be, but they deserved a chance to prove themselves. One by one, representatives rose to speak against humanity. A Krylos commander named Havrik stepped forward, his deep growl filling the chamber. Your kind clings to diplomacy even when faced with annihilation, he sneered. You abandon battles rather than face death. Such cowardice has no place among warriors. His words sparked murmurs of agreement throughout the room. Ilara wanted to shout back, to remind everyone of humanity's achievements, their exploration of uncharted worlds, their scientific breakthroughs, their willingness to help others despite limited resources. But she held her tongue. Arguing now would only make things worse. Instead, she focused on maintaining composure, letting her steady gaze challenge Havrik's glare. Finally, after what felt like hours, Zenara raised a hand, silencing the room. We have reached our decision, she announced. Humanity shall remain provisional members of the Galactic Council until such time as you can prove yourselves worthy. Until then, you are barred from participating in critical matters of galactic security. A wave of shame washed over Ilara, but she refused to look down. This wasn't just about her. It was about every human back on Earth counting on her to represent them. As the council adjourned, several delegates approached her, offering smug smiles or pitying looks. One of the Veil even emitted a low hum that sounded suspiciously like laughter. Back aboard the shuttle returning to Earth, Ilara stared out the window at the swirling colors of hyperspace. Her reflection stared back, pale but determined. Humanity might have been declared cowards today, but she vowed silently that this verdict wouldn't stand forever. Somewhere out there, among the stars, lay an opportunity to change everything, and she intended to seize it. Back on Earth, the verdict from the Galactic Council hit like a storm. News of humanity's disgrace spread rapidly, sparking protests in cities worldwide. Crowds gathered outside government buildings, holding signs that read, "We are not cowards," and "Stand up for humanity." Social media buzzed with outrage, while others debated whether Earth should simply withdraw from the Council altogether. Amidst the chaos, leaders scrambled to respond, but no one seemed to have a clear plan. In a secure underground facility near Geneva, Captain Ilara Quinn sat alone in a dimly lit briefing room. The weight of failure pressed heavily on her shoulders. She replayed Zenara's words in her mind. You lack the courage required to stand alongside us. Those words stung, not because they were entirely wrong, but because they carried a kernel of truth. Humans had retreated before, chosen peace over war, survival over glory. Yet Ilara knew there was more to humanity than cowardice. There had to be. Her thoughts were interrupted by the soft hiss of the door sliding open. Admiral Rhea Solis entered, her sharp features softened slightly by the warm glow of the holographic display on the table. "Ilara," she began, her tone measured yet urgent, "the Council has issued us one final task. A chance to redeem ourselves." Ilara leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. "What kind of task?" Rhea activated the hologram, revealing an image of a derelict alien vessel drifting through the void near the edge of known space. Its jagged silhouette looked like something torn straight out of a nightmare. "This is the Ecliptica," Rhea explained. "It appeared without warning 3 weeks ago, emitting strange signals. No other species has dared approach it. It's too risky. But the Council sees this as our test. If we investigate successfully, we prove our worth. If we fail..." She didn't need to finish the sentence. Ilara studied the image, her pulse quickening. The ship radiated danger, its dark surface marred by what looked like scars from some ancient battle. "Why us?" she asked finally. "Why send humans into something this perilous?" Rhea's expression hardened. "Because they think we'll run. Because they expect us to fail. And honestly, Ilara, if we don't take this mission, we might as well pack up and go home. This is our shot, not just at redemption, but at showing the galaxy who we really are." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Ilara stood, determination blazing in her eyes. "I'll lead the mission." The Admiral nodded approvingly. "Good. You'll command the Odyssey, our most advanced starship. We've assembled a crew of the best minds and bravest souls Earth has to offer. But listen carefully, Ilara. This isn't just about proving ourselves to the Council. It's about proving it to ourselves. Whatever's out there, you'll face it head-on." Over the next few days, preparations moved swiftly. The Odyssey was prepped for launch, its sleek silver hull gleaming under the hangar lights. Crew members arrived, each bringing their own mix of excitement and apprehension. Among them was Dr. Malik Chen, a brilliant xenobiologist whose quiet demeanor masked a fierce intellect. Then there was Lieutenant Zora Vega, a fiery pilot with a reputation for taking risks. Both greeted Ilara with respect, though she could see the unspoken question in their eyes. "Can we pull this off?" On the eve of departure, Ilara stood on the observation deck, staring out at the night sky. The stars twinkled mockingly, reminding her of the challenge ahead. Failure wasn't an option, not for Earth, not for humanity. As the countdown timer ticked closer to 0, she whispered a silent vow. "We won't let them down." When the engines roared to life the next morning, the Odyssey soared into the heavens, carrying the hopes of billions. For better or worse, humanity's fate now rested in the hands of those aboard. And whatever awaited them, in the cold depths of space. The Odyssey sliced through the endless void of space, its engines humming softly as it approached the mysterious derelict ship. The jagged, obsidian-like structure loomed larger with every passing moment, casting an eerie shadow over the crew's resolve. Dubbed the Ecliptica by Earth scientists, the alien vessel seemed to defy logic. Its surface was pockmarked with scars from battles long past, yet it floated silently, untouched by time or decay. Captain Ilara Quinn stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes fixed on the viewscreen. Behind her, Lieutenant Zora Vega adjusted the controls, guiding the Odyssey into a cautious orbit around the massive hulk. "We're within scanning range," Zara announced, her voice steady but tinged with unease. She glanced at Ilara. "Orders." Ilara took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Begin a full scan. I want to know everything we can about this thing before we get closer." Dr. Malik Chen, seated at a nearby console, nodded and began analyzing the data streaming in. His fingers danced across the holographic interface as he interpreted the readings. After a few tense minutes, he spoke. It's ancient, thousands, maybe millions of years old. Energy signatures suggest some systems are still active, though barely. And there's something else. He hesitated, frowning. There are traces of organic material inside. Could be remains of the crew, or something else entirely. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. They weren't alone out here. Whatever had happened to the Ecliptica, it hadn't ended cleanly. We need to board it, Ilara said finally, breaking the quiet. Her decision drew startled looks from the crew. If we're going to complete this mission and prove humanity's worth, we can't turn back now. Zora raised an eyebrow. You sure about that, Captain? This feels like walking into a trap. It might be, Ilara admitted. But if we don't investigate, we've already failed. We're not cowards, no matter what the Council thinks. After a brief debate, the team prepared for the boarding operation. Ilara selected a small group to accompany her, Zara, whose piloting skills would ensure their escape if needed, Dr. Chen, whose expertise could decode any alien technology they encountered, and 2 security officers armed with stun rifles. As they suited up in their sleek, white and gray spacesuits, each member of the team felt the weight of the mission pressing down on them. The airlock hissed open, and the team stepped onto the Ecliptica. Inside, the corridors were dimly lit by faint red lights embedded in the walls, casting long shadows that danced unnervingly. The air smelled stale, metallic, and oddly cold. Strange symbols etched into the black walls glowed faintly, pulsing rhythmically as though alive. This place gives me the creeps, muttered one of the security officers, gripping his rifle tightly. Stay focused, Ilara reminded him firmly. Stick together and keep your eyes open. They moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. In one chamber, they discovered rows of strange pods lining the walls. Some were cracked open, their interiors scorched and empty, while others remained sealed. Dr. Chen examined one of the closed pods, his face pale beneath his helmet visor. These look like stasis chambers, he whispered. Whoever built this ship must have used them to survive long journeys. Before he could finish, a low hum filled the corridor. The glowing symbols on the walls brightened suddenly, and the temperature dropped sharply. A shadow flickered at the edge of their vision, then vanished. What was that? Zora demanded, spinning around, her weapon raised. I don't know, Ilara replied, her voice calm but alert. But we're not leaving until we find answers. As they pressed deeper into the ship, the sense of being watched grew stronger. Every step felt heavier, every sound more ominous. Yet despite the fear gnawing at them, the crew pressed on, not just because they had to, but because they refused to let doubt define them. Humanity's courage wasn't measured by the absence of fear, but by the choice to act despite it. The hum grew louder, reverberating through the derelict ship like a heartbeat. The glowing symbols on the walls pulsed erratically, casting distorted shadows that seemed to twist and writhe as if alive. Captain Ilara Quinn raised a hand, signaling her team to stop. Her eyes scanned the corridor ahead, searching for any sign of movement. Stay close, she whispered, her voice steady despite the unease creeping up her spine. Dr. Malik Chen adjusted his scanner, trying to make sense of the readings. There's something here, he murmured, his tone uncertain. Energy spikes, but not from the ship itself. It's external. Before anyone could respond, the shadow flickered again, this time closer. Then, without warning, it lunged. A swirling mass of darkness surged toward them, its form shifting chaotically. It had no face, no body, just an ever-changing void that radiated malice. One of the security officers fired his stun rifle instinctively, but the bolts passed harmlessly through the entity, dissipating into nothingness. It's not physical, Zora shouted, backing away quickly. What do we do? Ilara's mind raced. Whatever this thing was, brute force wouldn't work. But then she noticed something. The symbols on the walls dimmed whenever the shadow drew near. She grabbed Malik's arm. Those symbols, they are connected to it somehow. Can you activate them? Malik hesitated, his hands trembling slightly. I can try, but messing with alien tech could make things worse. We don't have a choice. Ilara snapped, her voice sharp but controlled. Do it. Nodding nervously, Malik approached one of the glowing panels. He pressed his palm against it, mimicking what he'd seen in ancient human interfaces. At first, nothing happened. Then, with a low groan, the panel flared brightly, illuminating the corridor in a blinding flash. The shadow recoiled, letting out a soundless scream as it dissolved momentarily before reforming farther down the hall. It worked, Malik exclaimed, relief washing over him. But we'll need more than one panel. It's too strong. Spread out, Ilara ordered. Find other panels and activate them simultaneously. We'll drive it back together. The team split up, each member heading toward different sections of the corridor. Zora moved swiftly, her military training kicking in as she identified another panel. She slammed her fist onto it, triggering another burst of light. The shadow writhed violently, splitting apart into smaller tendrils that darted unpredictably. Meanwhile, Ilara confronted the largest fragment of the entity. As it loomed over her, feeding off her fear, she forced herself to stand still. You want courage, she muttered under her breath. Fine. Here it is. Summoning every ounce of determination, she activated another panel just inches from the shadow's core. This time, the light erupted in a searing wave, banishing the fragment entirely. One by one, the tendrils were driven back until only faint wisps remained. Exhausted but victorious, the team regrouped in the center of the corridor. They leaned against the walls, catching their breath as the oppressive atmosphere lifted slightly. What were those things? Malik asked, his voice shaky. I don't know, Ilara admitted. Residual consciousness, trapped souls. Whatever they are, they're tied to this ship, and they don't like intruders. Zara wiped sweat from her brow. Well, I vote we don't stick around to find out more. Let's grab whatever data we can and get out of here. Ilara nodded, though her gaze lingered on the now dormant panels. There was something eerily familiar about the way the shadows reacted to fear, like they thrived on it. And deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's presence aboard the Ecliptica had awakened more than just dormant systems. It had stirred memories best left buried. As the team pushed onward, the weight of their discovery settled heavily on their shoulders. Courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was the ability to act despite it. And right now, they needed all the courage they could muster. The crew of the Odyssey pressed deeper into the derelict ship, their footsteps echoing through the labyrinthine corridors. After surviving the shadowy entities, they were more cautious but determined to uncover the secrets hidden within the Ecliptica. Every step felt like walking through a graveyard, silent, oppressive, and filled with unanswered questions. Finally, they reached a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. The room was vast, its ceiling lost in darkness above them. At its center stood an enormous crystalline structure, glowing faintly with shifting hues of blue and violet. Surrounding it were holographic displays frozen mid-projection, depicting scenes of cosmic battles, crumbling planets, and swirling black voids that seemed to devour everything in their path. Dr. Malik Chen approached the crystal cautiously, his scanner humming as he analyzed the alien artifact. This is incredible, he murmured, his voice tinged with awe. It's some kind of data archive, a repository of knowledge. If I can access it, we might finally understand what happened here. Ilara stepped closer, her eyes scanning the frozen holograms. Do it, she said firmly. But be careful. We don't know what else this ship is hiding. Malik nodded and placed his hand on the crystal surface. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden surge of energy, the chamber came alive. The holograms flickered back into motion, showing images of a proud, advanced civilization. The Luminaries. They were tall, radiant beings with shimmering skin and elongated limbs, their presence exuding wisdom and power. Through fragmented translations, Malik pieced together their story. The Luminaries had once been guardians of the galaxy, protecting countless worlds from an unimaginable threat, the Void Spawn. These parasitic creatures consumed entire planets, leaving behind barren wastelands devoid of life. The Luminaries fought valiantly against the Void Spawn, sealing them away behind a dimensional barrier using technology far beyond human comprehension. But the victory came at a cost. To maintain the seal, the Luminaries sacrificed themselves, channeling their collective consciousness into the crystal before the team. Their final act ensured the survival of the galaxy. But now, millennia later, the barrier was weakening. Without intervention, the Void Spawn would break free once more, plunging the universe into chaos. "This changes everything," Ilara whispered, her mind racing. She turned to Malik. "Can we warn the Galactic Council? Can we stop this?" Malik hesitated, his face pale. "I don't know. Even if we could translate all the data, it'll take time. And we're running out of it. Plus," he glanced at the crystal warily, "this isn't just information, it's a responsibility. Do we even have the right to interfere?" Zara crossed her arms, her expression grim. "If we don't do something, no one else will. You heard what those council jerks think of us. They'd never believe a word we say anyway. But if we act, if we prove ourselves, it might redeem humanity in their eyes." Ilara nodded slowly, her resolve hardening. "Then we make a choice. We either report back and risk being ignored, or we take matters into our own hands and fight for the galaxy ourselves. What do you say, team?" There was a brief pause before Malik spoke up. "I'm with you, Captain. If the Luminaries gave everything to protect the galaxy, the least we can do is honor their sacrifice." "Same here," Zara added, gripping her rifle tightly. "Let's finish what they started." As the decision solidified, the weight of their mission settled heavily on their shoulders. Humanity had always been seen as weak, unwilling to fight. But now, standing amidst the ruins of a forgotten civilization, they realized courage wasn't about seeking glory. It was about doing what was necessary, even when the odds were stacked against them. With renewed purpose, the crew began downloading the archive's contents onto portable drives. Each byte of data felt like a lifeline, a chance to change not only humanity's fate, but the fate of the entire galaxy. As they worked, the crystalline structure pulsed gently, almost as if acknowledging their determination. For the first time since arriving aboard the Ecliptica, hope flickered in their hearts. Whatever lay ahead, they knew one thing for certain: humanity wouldn't back down. Not this time. The crew of the Odyssey worked tirelessly to secure the data from the Luminaries archive, their movements hurried but precise. The weight of their discovery pressed heavily on them. The knowledge that an ancient threat loomed over the galaxy, and humanity might be the only hope of stopping it. But as they prepared to leave the derelict ship, a sudden alarm blared through the corridors, startling everyone. "What's going on?" Zara demanded, her hand instinctively reaching for her weapon. Ilara scanned the room, her sharp eyes landing on one of the security officers, a man named Rennick. His face was pale, his hands trembling slightly as he held a small device in his palm. "Rennick," Ilara said, her voice cold and commanding. "What are you doing?" Rennick hesitated, guilt flashing across his features. Before anyone could react, two more figures emerged from the shadows. Technicians who had accompanied the team under the guise of assisting with equipment. Their expressions were grim, their loyalty clearly not to the mission or humanity. "We're sorry, Captain," one of the technicians said, stepping forward. "But we have our orders." "Orders from who?" Ilara snapped, her mind racing. She already knew the answer. "The Galactic Council," the technician admitted reluctantly. "They sent us to monitor your actions and ensure you didn't bring back anything that could contradict their narrative about humans." Ilara felt a surge of anger, but forced herself to stay calm. You're sabotaging this mission. After everything we've been through. It's not personal, the technician replied, though his tone betrayed discomfort. But the Council doesn't want humanity redeemed. They want us kept weak and compliant. Before Ilara could respond, Rennick activated the device in his hand. A bright pulse of energy surged through the chamber, disrupting the crystalline archive and scrambling the data drives. The holographic displays flickered and died, plunging the room into near darkness. "No," Malik shouted, lunging toward the crystal. But it was too late. Fragments of the precious archive began to fade, its light dimming rapidly. The betrayal cut deeper than any blade. Months of effort, sacrifice, and courage were being erased before their eyes. "Stop them," Ilara ordered, her voice cutting through the chaos. Zara sprang into action, tackling one of the technicians while Ilara confronted Rennick. The security officer tried to resist, but years of leadership training gave Ilara the edge. With a swift motion, she disarmed him, sending the device clattering to the floor. Meanwhile, Malik scrambled to salvage what little data remained, his fingers flying over the console. "You don't understand what you're doing," Ilara growled at Rennick, pinning him against the wall. "This isn't just about Earth. It's about the entire galaxy. If the void spawn returns, no one will be safe, not even the Council." Rennick looked away, shame etched on his face. "I was just following orders." "Well, sometimes orders are wrong," Ilara shot back, releasing him with a shove. Turning to the others, she barked, "We need to get out of here. Now." The technicians, realizing resistance was futile, attempted to flee with the partially corrupted data. Zara intercepted them, using quick thinking to disable their escape route. In the ensuing scuffle, the stolen drives were recovered, though much of the information was lost forever. As the team regrouped aboard the Odyssey, the mood was somber. They had thwarted the betrayal, but the cost was steep. Only fragments of the Luminaris archive remained, enough to warn the galaxy, but not enough to guarantee success. Ilara stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars. Her jaw tightened as she made a silent vow. Humanity wouldn't let fear or manipulation dictate their fate. This act of defiance marked a turning point. No longer would they bow to the Council's prejudice. Whatever came next, they would face it head-on, as equals among the stars. This version keeps the tension high, introduces betrayal as a key conflict, and emphasizes humanity's resilience. Let me know if you'd like further tweaks. With their mission compromised and trust in the Galactic Council shattered, Captain Ilara Quinn knew they couldn't return to Earth empty-handed, or worse, with only fragments of the Luminaris archive. Humanity's survival, and the galaxy's, depended on finding allies who would believe them. But where could they turn? The Council had labeled humans cowards, unfit for leadership, who would listen to a species dismissed as weak. Ilara called an emergency meeting aboard the Odyssey. Gathered around the briefing table, her crew exchanged wary glances. "The Council won't help us," she began, her voice firm. "And we can't rely on Earth alone to fight this battle. If we're going to stop the void spawn, we need support from others who've been cast aside, those who understand what it means to be underestimated." Zara leaned forward, her fiery demeanor softened by curiosity. "You mean the outcasts? The ones no one cares about?" "Exactly," Ilara replied. "There are factions out there, the rebels, the forgotten races, the scavengers, who've been pushed to the fringes by the Council. They may not have power or resources, but they share one thing, a desire to survive. And if we show them the truth, they might join us." Dr. Malik Chen frowned, his analytical mind weighing the risks. "It's risky. These groups aren't exactly known for playing nice. Some of them might see us as just another pawn of the Council." "We'll take that chance," Ilara said decisively. "Because right now, it's the only shot we've got." The Odyssey set course for Corvith Prime, a lawless asteroid belt teeming with rogue traders, mercenaries, and exiles. As they approached, the ship's sensors detected countless vessels darting between massive chunks of rock, their hulls patched together from scrap metal. It was a chaotic place, ruled by survival rather than order. Upon landing, the crew ventured into the heart of the settlement, a sprawling maze of makeshift structures lit by flickering neon signs. Here, they found representatives of several marginalized groups: the nomads, cybernetically enhanced wanderers who rejected galactic society; the Xylari, shapeshifters ostracized for their unpredictable nature; and even remnants of the Krylos resistance, warriors who opposed their own militaristic government. Ilara addressed the assembled leaders in a dimly lit cantina, her words direct and heartfelt. "We know you've been wronged by the Council," she began, "but something bigger is coming, something none of us can face alone. The Void Spawn are real, and if we don't stop them, they'll destroy everything. We're asking you to stand with us, not because we're strong, but because together we can be stronger." At first, skepticism reigned. A nomad leader named Kale spoke up, his mechanical arm whirring softly. "Why should we trust you? You're part of the same system that abandoned us." "We're not asking for blind faith," Ilara countered. "We're offering proof." She activated a hologram, displaying the fragments of the Luminaris archive. Though incomplete, the images were enough to spark murmurs of unease among the crowd. After hours of debate, the tide began to turn. An Xylari elder stepped forward, her fluid form shimmering in the low light. "If what you say is true, then staying silent makes us complicit. We'll join you, but only if humanity leads by example." One by one, the factions pledged their support, forming an unlikely coalition united by necessity and hope. For the first time, Ilara felt a flicker of optimism. Humanity wasn't alone anymore. They had partners willing to fight alongside them. As the meeting concluded, Zara glanced at Ilara with a smirk. Guess being called cowards wasn't such a bad thing after all. "Look where it got us." Ilara smiled faintly, though her gaze remained serious. "This isn't over yet, but for the first time, I think we actually have a chance." The coalition assembled aboard the Odyssey and other makeshift vessels, each group bringing their unique skills and resources to the fight. The nomads contributed advanced cybernetic technology scavenged from derelict ships, while the Xylari offered their ability to infiltrate enemy lines undetected. Even the Krylos resistance brought weapons and tactical expertise honed through years of rebellion. Despite their differences, they worked together with a shared purpose: survival. Captain Ilara Quinn stood in the central command hub of the Odyssey, overseeing the chaotic yet determined efforts. Engineers from Earth and the nomads collaborated tirelessly, retrofitting ships with experimental weapons designed to combat the Void Spawn. Dr. Malik Chen led a team of scientists in decoding the remaining fragments of the Luminaris archive, piecing together strategies and countermeasures that could give them an edge. Every moment counted. The barrier holding back the Void Spawn was weakening faster than expected. Lieutenant Zara Vega patrolled the hangar bay, ensuring every ship was battle-ready. Her fiery demeanor softened slightly as she watched humans and aliens working side by side, united by necessity. "Never thought I'd see the day when we team up with pirates and rebels," she muttered to herself, shaking her head. But deep down, she felt a flicker of pride. Humanity had gone from being dismissed as cowards to rallying the galaxy's forgotten souls. Ilara faced challenges of her own as leader of the coalition. Each faction had its own demands, motivations, and distrust of others. A heated argument erupted between the nomads and the Krylos resistance over resource allocation, threatening to derail progress. Ilara stepped in, her voice calm but authoritative. "We don't have time for this," she said firmly. "Every second we waste arguing is another second the Void Spawn grows stronger. We're not here to fight each other. We're here to protect what matters." Her words struck a chord. Slowly, tensions eased, replaced by a renewed sense of focus. Back on Earth, ordinary citizens rallied behind the cause, sending messages of hope to the crew. Billions donated supplies, volunteered for support roles, or simply prayed for their success. For the first time, humanity felt truly united, not just among themselves, but with the galaxy's outcasts. As preparations neared completion, Ilara gathered the leaders of the coalition for one final briefing. Holographic projections displayed maps of the void spawn's predicted emergence points, along with contingency plans for every possible scenario. "This will be the hardest fight any of us has ever faced," she admitted, her tone grave but resolute. "But remember why we're doing this. Not for glory, not for revenge, but because it's the right thing to do." The room fell silent, the weight of her words sinking in. Kale, the nomad leader, nodded slowly. "You've earned our trust, Captain. Let's finish this." That night, Ilara found herself alone on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly before her, vast and beautiful yet fragile. She thought about all they had sacrificed, and all they stood to lose. Fear lingered at the edges of her mind, but so did hope. Courage wasn't about never feeling afraid. It was about standing firm despite it. Tomorrow, they would face the void spawn. Tomorrow, humanity would prove itself, not to the Council, but to the universe. This version balances action, emotion, and character development while keeping the tension high and the language accessible. Let me know if you'd like further tweaks. The Coalition fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the void spawn's breach, their ships arranged in a ragtag formation that reflected the diversity of those aboard. The barrier holding back the parasitic entities was visibly crumbling, cracks of dark energy spreading like veins across the void. From these fissures, tendrils of shadowy matter began to seep out, feeding on the light and life around them. It was as if the galaxy itself was being consumed. Captain Ilara Quinn stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, her hands gripping the railing tightly. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and determination. Behind her, Lieutenant Zara Vega coordinated the fleet's positioning, while Dr. Malik Chen monitored the Luminaris data for any last-minute insights. "We're ready," Zara said, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding outside. "But this is going to be ugly." Ilara nodded. "Then let's make sure we're the ones left standing." The battle began without warning. A massive wave of void spawn surged through the weakening barrier, their forms shifting and twisting unnaturally. They moved like living storms, devouring everything in their path. The Coalition ships opened fire, unleashing salvos of experimental weapons designed to disrupt the creature's connection to the dimensional rift. Beams of energy lanced through space, striking the void spawn and causing them to writhe in agony, but not disappear. "They're adapting." Malik shouted from his station, panic creeping into his voice. "Our weapons aren't enough. We need to hit the source." Ilara barked, her mind racing. She turned to Zora. "Get me close to the barrier. If we can collapse it completely, maybe we can seal them back inside." Zara hesitated, her eyes widening. "That's suicide. You'll never survive getting that close." "It's the only way," Ilara replied firmly. "Do it." As the Odyssey charged toward the barrier, the rest of the fleet fought desperately to hold off the void spawn. The nomads deployed EMP drones that temporarily disrupted the creature's movement, while the Xylari infiltrated enemy clusters, sabotaging their cohesion. Even the Krylos resistance launched kamikaze runs, sacrificing their ships to buy time for the others. Inside the Odyssey, alarms blared as the ship took heavy damage. Sparks flew from consoles, and crew members scrambled to keep systems online. Ilara ignored the chaos, focusing solely on the task ahead. When they finally reached the barrier, she activated the device built using the Luminaris archive, a pulsating crystal core connected to the ship's engines. "This is it," she said over the comms, addressing the entire fleet. "To everyone fighting today, you've shown what courage really means. No matter what happens next, humanity will no longer be seen as cowards. We stand together, not just for Earth, but for the galaxy." With that, she initiated the sequence. The crystal core erupted in a blinding flash of light, sending waves of energy cascading into the barrier. The void spawn screamed silently as the rift began to collapse, pulling them back into the void. But the strain on the Odyssey was catastrophic. Systems failed one by one, and the ship started breaking apart. "Ilara, eject!" Zara yelled desperately from her fighter, hovering nearby. "You don't have to die here." "I made my choice," Ilara whispered, tears streaming down her face as she watched the barrier seal shut. The last thing she saw before the ship disintegrated was the Coalition fleet retreating safely behind her. Silence fell over the battlefield. The void spawn were gone. For now. This version emphasizes sacrifice, teamwork, and emotional stakes while keeping the action intense and engaging. The galaxy mourned Captain Ilara Quinn, but her sacrifice did not go unnoticed. News of the Coalition's victory spread quickly, carried by survivors who had witnessed humanity's bravery firsthand. The Odyssey had been destroyed, but its crew's actions ensured that the void spawn were sealed away once more, just as the Luminaries had done millennia ago. Humanity's name echoed across star systems, no longer tied to cowardice or weakness, but to courage and selflessness. Back on Earth, monuments were erected in honor of those who had given their lives. Cities held vigils under starlit skies, with speeches praising Ilara's leadership and the unity she inspired among the galaxy's forgotten souls. Her final words, "Do we stand together, not just for Earth, but for the galaxy," became a rallying cry for generations to come. At the Galactic Council, shock rippled through the assembly when Admiral Rhea Solis delivered a blistering report detailing humanity's role in saving the galaxy. She presented evidence of the Council's betrayal, the spies aboard the Odyssey, their attempts to sabotage the mission, and demanded accountability. "You called us cowards," Rhea declared, her voice ringing through the chamber. "But it was humanity who rallied the outcasts, who fought against impossible odds, and who sacrificed everything to protect you all." Zinara, the council leader, floated silently for a moment before speaking. Her translucent form shimmered faintly, betraying a rare flicker of emotion. "We misjudged you," she admitted, her voice heavy with regret. "Humanity has proven itself worthy, not through conquest or power, but through compassion and resolve. You have earned your place among us." With that, the Council formally granted humanity full membership, revoking their provisional status. Cheers erupted from delegations who had once doubted Earth's worth, while others bowed their heads in respect. For the first time, humans stood equal among the stars. Meanwhile, the coalition forged during the battle remained intact, becoming an independent alliance dedicated to protecting the galaxy's most vulnerable. The Nomads, Thylari and Krylos Resistance, continued to work alongside Earth, united by shared values rather than fear. Together, they rebuilt worlds ravaged by the void spawn, offering aid where the Council had turned a blind eye. On Corvith Prime, Zara Vega took command of the new Alliance's flagship, renamed the Legacy of Ilara. She often visited the observation deck, staring out at the stars as Ilara once had. "She gave us hope," Zara murmured to Malik one evening, her voice soft. "Now it's our job to keep it alive." Malik nodded, holding up a small fragment of the Luminaris crystal salvaged from the battle. Its faint glow pulsed gently, a reminder of what had been lost, and what could still be achieved. "Ilara showed us that courage isn't about never feeling afraid," he said quietly. "It's about standing together despite it. We'll carry that lesson forward." As years passed, humanity's legacy grew stronger. They became known not for war or dominance, but for their ability to unite others in the face of adversity. Schools taught the story of the Odyssey and its crew, instilling pride in future generations. And though Ilara was gone, her spirit lived on. In every act of kindness, every alliance formed, every moment of unity sparked by her example. In the vastness of space, the stars burned brighter than ever, their light a testament to the courage of one species and the ripple effect it created across the galaxy. Humanity wasn't perfect. They never claimed to be. But they proved something far greater. Even the smallest spark could ignite change among the stars. And so, the galaxy moved forward, not divided by fear, but united by hope.